Hello, I'm Norbert Fullerton, one of the elders here at Billericay Baptist Church, and welcome to our new series of faith stories, where members and friends of our church are going to be talking about God's goodness to them over these last few recent months. With me today, welcome Janine, Degun, one of our members and a good friend of mine. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Janine, personally and professionally.
Well, I'm Janine, and I'm a mum of four, granny of four grandchildren, and I'm a GP in Basildon, where I've worked for 34 years.
Thanks so much for that, and welcome to our program. Welcome to our session here today. With one of your first sons, Luke, he went through a challenge, from what I gather, starting last year with his health. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about that and what's the latest development?
Luke's my youngest, and he's 19 now. So just over a year ago, he became very ill just before he was going to do his A-levels, and he was admitted to hospital. And after 2 months in hospital, he was eventually diagnosed with autoimmune liver disease and heart problems and kidney stones. So it was really challenging, the timing just before the A-levels, and the fact that he was so ill and nobody could really find out exactly what was the problem. He had loads of tests, really horrible invasive tests, lumbar punctures, liver biopsies, and different procedures. And God sustained me through this period, because it's one of these things you wouldn't be able to get through on your own.
Yeah. How did you actually cope during that period?
I mean, when your children are ill, it's always a really scary time, and you always think, what the worst things can happen. But through it all, I did feel supported by prayer, because it's a period where you kind of go on to autopilot, really. You just go into the hospital, trying to eat, trying to go to work, trying to do your normal things, and you just really like you're looking down on the situation. But I know I had a lot of people praying for me, and I believe that got us through it. And we're coming out the other end now. Luke was due to do his A-levels this year, as he was unable to do them last year. So, right. And due to COVID, they were cancelled. So, but he did get his grades,
Wonderful.
And it's now in university. So,
fantastic.
And not 100% with his health, but so much better than he was by God's grace.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you so much for sharing that. And what about on the professional side? You're a GP for, as you said, for over 30 years. Tell us about the last few months, pre-COVID and during COVID. How did you actually handle this period?
COVID came suddenly, and we realised that there was something going on, and then all of a sudden there was lockdown, and we had to drastically change the way we worked, from seeing patients all day to having to shut our doors and only consult with patients on the telephone and remotely, which was very challenging, because I went through school, university, and the first several years of my working life without using computers, so I'm not the most brilliant person with technology, but we quickly had to learn the new software and how to do the video consultation. Wow. which was also a great challenge for the patients as well, having to video themselves and get their phones into areas to look at their rashes and that sort of thing. So it's a challenge all along. And then we had staff going down with the COVID. We had staff self-isolating. We had staff bereaved due to COVID, and staff members with severe anxiety who couldn't come to work. So I was having to work a lot more and in a different way. So it was a little bit of a brainstorm for me, really, like a storm coming into my brain, and having to deal with new things every day.
So that's very interesting, isn't it? So it's not just patients coming to you, not necessarily physically but virtually, but also staff going through similar crises.
Yeah.
How did you handle this period?
I think I'm trying to deal with it one day at a time and trying to remember the words in Matthew 6 of "do not worry." So I try and get up each day and say "do not worry." Just face each day and what things bring. Obviously, you do have to plan ahead for what tomorrow might bring as well. But I think during COVID, because there was a change every day. One day you could do this, one day you had to do something different. One day we were allowed to see patients in face to face. One day we weren't. One day a staff member would be in. One day they wouldn't. So it was just not worrying about each day, just trusting each day to God, so that He goes with you during the day.
It's a challenge, isn't it? Because we're now going through a second wave, and patients. So you're probably seeing patients developing even additional symptoms or different types of symptoms. I mean, how do you advise them? And when you see perhaps the long-term effect of this virus on people's lives, and how do you advise them? What kind of counselling or comforting guidance you provide them with at this time?
Yeah, I mean it's very difficult to counsel because none of us know it's a new disease, and even the complications are new. So as far as the medical side of things, it's very hard to say how long these things are going to last. And somebody said to me last week, "How long is this cough going to last?" And you can't give an answer. So it's been a challenge that as medics. Things are happening and we don't really understand, and we don't know about it. So it's difficult to tell the patients when there's nothing in the medical literature that we can give an exact answer to. Again, it's just helping the patient through that particular phase and trying to deal with the symptoms and the problems that are happening now.
Okay, and just before we go, Janine, for any perhaps person watching this video who may be wondering, how am I going to go through this particular second wave? And perhaps they may be facing symptoms themselves, or maybe not, or just close family members. What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, obviously you have to follow the government guidelines. I mean, we're Christians, so I would say trust in God. But not everybody believes in God, as we know. But I would say try and get as much family and neighbourhood support as you can. So I think during COVID, people have been closer to their neighbours and their immediate family and people you meet. So I would say try and rely on them for support and talk to people. Don't let things bottle up.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Janine. We can't thank you enough for the work you do on the front line, and keep that faith strong. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.